Right now I'm cruising along in a car at more than 10 times the speed that I do when I'm in my sailboat. Pretty crazy to think about. This is the first time I've driven a car in 6 months. Yesterday I took a ferry from Waisai to Sarong, flew from Sarong to Makassar to Jakarta, and then to Bangkok, and then to Zurich. I got off the plane, jumped on a train, took a 3-hour train ride to Schlins in Austria, picked up this car. Now I'm driving 2 hours through Austria and then over the border into Switzerland again. It's like a different world, a different universe I've just come into. The last 6 months I haven't been to a supermarket, I haven't had basically internet, I've just lived with local people and all the places I've been to, mostly atolls and small islands. I've eaten the food that they've grown or fish that I've caught or basic supplies I took with me. And now I'm back in this rat race. It's just cars, people, everyone on their phone, Wi-Fi, fast internet everywhere, everything you could want. You know, like not just one supermarket per town, you get 7 all over everywhere, and then all the fast food, and it's just a world of too much. One contrast completely to the other end of the contrast spectrum. Craziness. It's blowing me away right now a little bit. Do you know what though? Not one single person has said hello to me yet. You know, apart from the hostess in the plane, it's their job. But not one single normal person has said hello or even given me a smile yet. That's a huge difference. All the places I've been the last 6 months, every single person who walks past you gives you a smile and a duck of the head or a wave or a shy giggle, or asks to take a picture with you, or where you're from or where you're going. Everybody has time for each other, and here nobody has any time. All too busy doing God knows what. Different, just very different. Here everybody has everything and more. Probably that's half the problem. People have too much. There's too much options, there's too many options. They spend half their time trying to decide between what they can do and what they can have. Most of these people living on the islands are in some way related, but that doesn't really matter. They are all one big family. They help each other out. Ownership of things isn't as important there. You just borrow. If somebody has this and you need it, you go and ask them for it. Here it's just different. Here people spend all of their waking moments working to get more money, to have more stuff. And we say keeping up with the Joneses, but it's not that. It's keeping up with what advertising and marketing companies make us believe we need and we want. And our lives just slither on by, and before you know it, we're old and we haven't done anything. We've got a lot of stuff. So yeah, it's been an eye-opening year. So I'm sitting up here at 3,000 meters in Switzerland, but I'm going to give a bit of a rundown of my travels in summer with the boat, just so that just people who haven't seen all the videos can get a bit of an overview of what the season was like. So I first set off from Australia, from Gladstone. It was my first offshore passage actually, and in my new boat. So I took a crew member with me, Tom, a young guy who'd never sailed before, but he'd spent a bit of time with his father in fishing boats and that offshore, so he was pretty confident. He grew up on the ocean, on the beach, surfing and everything. He was pretty confident, as you can see in the start of the video.
Looking forward to it. First time offshore and keen to get cracking.
How nervous are you?
Getting keen. Oh, not at all, mate.
No.
Just buzzing.
As soon as we got off shore, out of sight of land and no more phone coverage, he sort of got into a bit of a mental state actually, and didn't recover at all until we got to Honiara in the Solomons. It was really difficult to deal with for him and for me actually. It would have been much easier for me to do the travel by myself. I hope Tom has got over that since the trip ended. Yeah, it was a pretty good trip. The boat went amazingly, better than I would have expected actually, and had pretty strong winds, pretty much 40 knots. I had a maximum of 44 I think, but it was 35 to 40 knots pretty much the whole way. The first 3 days straight from the front, and the waves as well, so I was actually flying off waves and crashing quite hard. But it was a good test for the boat and for me. I got pretty tired after the 5th day, so I decided to slow down a little bit. But got into Honiara, yeah, nothing broken, and it was a good feeling to get in there and complete my first passage. I spent a couple of days in Honiara checking in and just resting up and trying to find some food and stuff, and then Tom flew home and a new guy, Dion, flew in, and we just did a short, I think it was only about a half a day or a 6-hour sail over to Roderick Bay. The first proper stop in the Solomons. Had a great, what was it, maybe 10 days there. It was really cool getting to, you know, see the Solomons. I'd never been there and get to know the locals, and it was a real tiny little village there. Had a really good time there. Really, just like right now we're here. This is what I bought the boat for, just to, you know, like explore these places and meet these people in small villages that don't have anything really compared to what we have in the West. So this was like, bang! I'm here. I'm doing it, and this is awesome. That was a real good introduction to what I hope my next few years are going to be like, visiting remote little places with simple, nice people, and finding out about their cultures and just how they are, you know. We then did a overnight passage. I think it was about a 27-hour passage, just through islands and whatnot, over to Morovo Lagoon. It's, some people call it the 8th wonder of the world, and it was pretty spectacular. It's just this massive double-edged lagoon, so it's very calm, and thousands of little islands and coral reefs everywhere inside. I was a bit worried getting there about navigation inside there, just because, you know, the maps and that are rubbish for that area, but the water was so clear there, and as long as we would travel on you know, like good weather days, it was actually no problem. You could see the colour in the depths of the water just through the colours, you know, so it wasn't really a problem. We had a first day in the lagoon. We had a crocodile attack actually. Dion got... I was swimming about 3-4 metres in the deeper side of the channel, and I heard a splash, and I looked over and I saw this croc between me and Dion, and I saw its mouth open. It obviously had one snap, and he was trying to turn around to have another go. And around that time I heard Dion yell out, "Fuck, croc," but I'd already seen it. And I was holding onto the anchor rope of the dinghy, and I pulled myself back to the dinghy. At the same, I was watching him the whole time, and I watched him head towards land, and I saw the croc going for him again. I jumped out of the water in like a split second. I probably just levitated myself onto the boat. So I was up high and I could watch it, and I could just see this thrashing around in the shallows. It was only about 50 centimetres deep, I guess, where Dion was sitting, but he was sitting there for a good few seconds, and I'm not sure if it was the croc thrashing around or Dion's flippers. Probably Dion's flippers trying to just push himself up on the beach. But I had this thought in my mind, oh no, he's got Dion's leg or something, and now he's thrashing around. And Dion wasn't saying anything. There was no sound coming out, and I was just thinking, oh, now what are we going to... No, now we're going to deal with a massive situation. I was just like, now this is shit. What are we going to do? And then Dion pulled himself up onto land and stood there, and I saw this flash of red, and I was like, oh no, he's been bitten. There's blood, and it was this red dive knife on his leg, and I was just like, oh, that's good. And then we didn't really say anything for a couple of seconds, and I was like, you're right. And he's like, yeah, it's all good. And he looked over his, yep, I'm good. And then we gave it a few minutes, and I went drove the dinghy into the beach, picked him up, and here we are. And yeah, it's time to leave this little island. This is not a good place for spearfishing. Pretty beautiful, isn't it? So we survived the crocodile attack. Spent some awesome days, camped outside a little village with really cool kids on the boat all the time. Spent some time with some woodcarvers. John, the woodcarver, was amazing. Got to watch him work and hang out with his family under the house, and caught some nice fish in the lagoon, trolling around, and made our way up through the lagoon northwest over about a week, I guess. Dion had an ear infection, so that was sort of pissing him off, but we weren't going in the water anymore after the crocodile attack anyway. So, but yeah, we changed the route a little bit to try and get to a little pharmacy place to get him some antibiotics, but it didn't work out. We ended up going up through a couple little narrow channels, and then getting to a place called, it wasn't Gizo, I've forgotten the name of the place, I'll write it here anyway. And we checked out of Solomon Islands there, actually did all the customs stuff, checked out. But we stayed in the Solomons a bit long after that, but yeah, don't tell anyone. From there we did about a 27-hour sail again through the night up to Arnavon Islands, the turtle sanctuary. Had an amazing time there. followed Dixon around. He's been there for 20 years, helped out millions of turtles get to the ocean. That was really cool. I'd never seen that before. At the same time, I'd had a little bit of a blood infection. It was sort of getting little volcano sort of eruptions on my arms and legs. So I started taking some antibiotics as well. So I actually stayed there a few more days to let me heal up, but it was cool because I really got to spend time with Dixon there, and it was really, really cool. And then it was the big mission out to Ontong Java, which was about, from memory, around 350 miles. So 3 days, 3 nights. I'd heard about Ontong Java from Dr. Stark. I met him in Magnetic Island in Australia by chance, and he's a marine biologist. He'd been out there filming in the 70s and made shark movies and coral and studying the coral out there. And he told me about it, and since, you know, he showed me a lot of pictures, and I watched a movie he made, and I'd always wanted to go out to Ontong Java, so it was a real big goal of mine to get out there, and it was mind-blowing. I wish I could have stayed out there longer than I did, but it was really cool. Unfortunately, I lost a lot of the footage I shot out there. You can see from the movie. I interviewed a lot of the people out there because the environmental issues are really changing their lives, and they're probably going to have to start thinking about immigrating to somewhere else, which is really sad because their culture is amazing out there. Anyway, I'm going to ride down now. I'll tell the rest of the story when I get to the bottom. It's pretty nice. Down at the river again. It's where we started about 7 hours ago. Good morning. Another mountain scene. We're at 3,000 meters pretty much. Coldest day since a long time. I think it's about minus 10 or 12, and then with a lot of wind, so it's probably another 10 or 12 on top of that. Anyway, I think last time I was talking about Ontong Java and how amazing it was, and how I want to go back, and how I definitely will go back one day, hopefully before they're all forced to leave. Anyway, the time did come when we had to leave, and we woke up in the morning. No, I'll go back. The night before, the chiefs and all the headmen in the village put on a going away feast for us, which was amazing. Anyway, so we walked off to the headman's meeting house, and we all sat in there and gorged ourselves on all the delicacies from the island. They'd been cooking for a couple of days apparently. We hadn't known about it, but and then the different headmen and chiefs of the village stood up and gave us a nice speech, and thanked us for being there, and thanked us for being so nice and taking the time to film them and interact with them, and I stood up and gave a speech myself. I didn't really film any of this. It was completely dark in there, so it was sort of impossible. That was quite moving. It was quite cool. They don't get a lot of visitors there, and they're very, very welcoming and happy when visitors do make the effort to go out there. Yeah, we went to sleep and got up at 7 in the morning to get the boat ready to go. And there was a young guy sitting in the cockpit. He'd snuck aboard, and his name was Mark. We'd met him before. He was 15. His father was from Ontong Java and his mother was from Mortlock, I think, and so he grew up on Mortlock, and he came a couple of years ago to Ontong Java and just never made it back because there's no ships or no boats going back, so he was desperate to go back and see his family. So we took him on I think it was a 2-day journey back to Mortlock, and that was really cool because we arrived in Mortlock with a lost son of theirs, and so we were automatically greeted pretty well. I did say in the video that I was going to show that. I started editing a Mortlock Island video, but I didn't have enough footage. We only stayed 3 days, so I didn't do it. But here are a few clips that I did film. They sail with outrigger canoes there. They don't really have any outboard motors on that island. It's quite a poor island, but amazing. Had a really good time. They also made us a huge feast there, which was really cool. Some kids came aboard and asked for some yeast so they could make bread for their baby. And then the next day we saw them and they were all looking really rough, and we were like, what's going on? And anyway, we found out that they'd used the yeast to make a local moonshine. They mix coffee and coconut sugar with yeast overnight, and it turns into some potent evil moonshine brew. So the whole of there's a whole gang of these kids that were all drunk and smashed all night, but I don't think anyone cared too much. We did get a few more people coming asking for yeast after that, so I had to say we didn't have any left. It was very exposed anchorage, and we had 24 hours of just pumping 30 to 40 knots of wind, and I was really scared you know, that we were going to drag anchor, because at night you're just surrounded by bommies, and if you drag anchor you're sort of screwed. So the next morning, when it had calmed down a little bit, we just basically got out of there, said goodbye quickly and just got out of there, because I was just worried we were going to get stuck in there and have some problem hitting bommies. And so yeah, we sailed away from there. That was the last Polynesian island actually that we visited. After that, it turned, you know, the people changed from their, you know, their look and their accents and their culture, their customs. We sailed all the way up, weaved our way through islands, I think 3 days, up to Kavieng after that. Kavieng's the first place where we sort of had there was a reasonable supermarket there with a fridge, and they actually had cheese and stuff. It was about a year out of date and a bit mouldy, but they did have some cheese. So we actually checked into PNG there, and the same afternoon checked out. Just got the stamp in the passport so that we were, you know, visible. And Dion left then. He flew home. He'd been on board for a couple of months. He'd had a good time. We had a pretty good time together. We had some pretty amazing adventures. And then the next leg was going to be a very long one, so he took his opportunity to jump on a plane there and fly down to Port Moresby, and then just back down to, I think, Brisbane or Sydney. So from there on I was on my own, and that was real exciting and cool for me. I'd really been looking forward to sailing that part on my own. Yeah, it was cool. And then it actually was long legs from there on, so I reprovisioned. I got a little bit of diesel that I needed, filled up with water, and buzzed out of there. And then I had a 4-day passage alone over to Hermit Islands. And Hermit Islands was, as you can see from the video up here, I linked, it's the Manta Island, the Manta Pass place, where I was swimming, you know, anchored right there by where the mantas came every day. And that was just crazy beautiful. The video sort of shows it quite well, but it, you know, I was there for a week and it doesn't really show everything. I got a tour of this new school project that they're building. Here's a few shots from that. They're building a big new secondary school for the whole area, sort of, because now all the kids from that island and all the other islands that are around all have to go a 12-hour outboard little dinghy ride across the open ocean back to Manus Island, which is about 200 miles away, 400k or something away. So they've built a new high school on Hermit Islands, so all the outlying islands will come to there now, which might mess up the Manta Pass, because that's where all the boats have to go through to get to this new high school. So Bob, the old guy looking after the mantas, is pretty concerned, but I'm sure they'll find a compromise to maybe have a go slow zone through that pass or something. I hope they do, because it's a very, very special place. From there I sailed out and sailed about, it was an overnight pass. I left in the evening, just got out of the lagoon before it got dark, sailed overnight down to Ninigo. It's another beautiful place. I only had a few days there. I was really on a timeline to get to Indonesia, basically, because I had to get back to Europe for a photo shoot, and I had to find somewhere to leave the boat and find somewhere to fly out of. So these last few places were really amazing. They're about 200 miles offshore from the north coast of Papua New Guinea. Ninigo was great. Met a great family there who just looked after me. They came out with gifts and they bought crayfish and they took me spearfishing, and you know, I reciprocated with things I could do. I took photos of them and printed them out, and I gave them, you know, helped them out with some tools that they needed and fishing gear and stuff like that. But it was great. I think I spent 4 or 5 days there. Caught a really nice giant trevally on the way out of the lagoon, which was nice. And then basically had a 7-day passage. Oh no, I didn't. I had a 2-day passage. I went to the mainland of PNG, actually, to a place called Venimo. I'd been told I shouldn't go there. It was very dangerous and whatnot. People had been robbed there with machetes and things like that. But I arrived there. I timed it quite well. I arrived there at sunrise and anchored up and went ashore and bought some things I needed, because it had been 2 weeks since I'd had any food or anything. So I got some fresh food there, and there was a market on the beach, and a guy came down and said, "Oh, pull your dinghy up to my little shop here. I'll look after it, and you know, he looked after it, and then I bought a little bit of produce off him on the way back. The port there is quite busy. They log all the hardwood up in the highlands, and it all goes out of there to Malaysia or somewhere. And so they're loading these big log ships there on the harbour, which is quite interesting to watch, but also very sad. It was just they're just raping the highlands, and I'm doubting anyone of the locals really get anything out of it, but that's the way it is in these countries, I guess. Pretty sad. So yeah, I got out of there before dark. Didn't have any troubles whatsoever, and then it was a 7-day 7-night passage that I had just straight through to Sorong in Indonesia. That's where I filmed the solo sailing video that everyone seemed to love so much, that I was really afraid was going to be the most boring video of the whole thing, but apparently people like that, so thumbs up for that. It was real nice. It was hectic. It was squalls coming through and then just glass off for a couple of hours and things like that, but it was nice. I learned a lot about my boat and about myself. I had a lot of time to ponder my decisions in life, and what I want to do, what I want to still achieve, what's important to me, all these sorts of things that you do when you're by yourself for days on end. Arrived in Sorong, met a guy called John who I'd been told about from another sailor that had been there. He was awesome. He helped me out a lot, took me around to all the different offices I need to go to check in, told me where showed me where I could anchor and that, and I anchored outside his house so his kids looked after my boat when I was in town, and all these sorts of things. It's just great meeting people, like the people are just really nice and want to help. Obviously I help in return. I paid John for his time obviously and things like that, but it's real worth it for me. Spent a week there, then went across to Waisai, left the boat there and flew back to Europe for 4 weeks to do a big photo shoot, catalogue shoot. This is how I earn my money. Thanks to all you patrons that are putting some money towards these videos, but it doesn't really cover my sailing. It helps out with the internet and producing these sorts of videos, but I still have to go and work, which I love doing. Nothing against that. So I flew back to Switzerland, went from the equator up to a 4,000 metre glacier and shot for three weeks up there, which was cool. It all went well, earned my good money. Yeah, flew back to Waisai with Lisa and Ilva and started looking around Raja Ampat a little bit. And yeah, from what I've seen so far, it looks completely amazing, and I've got a lot of things that I'm going to dig deeper into, in places and villages, and some environmental research they're doing there. I'm going to go and document that, and there's quite a few cool things happening. So that'll be coming up in the next season, starting from May when I get back to the boat. My main takeaways from this season just have been zero regrets. Everything was better and easier in a way than I expected. My main concerns leaving Australia was water. I didn't have a water maker, so I was like, am I going to have enough water? Navigation, I know the maps and everything up that way are all rubbish. Security, there's a lot of bad stuff on the internet about Papua New Guinea and things like that, and I have to say, of all those three main concerns, this many of them were a problem. Water was not an issue. I never even came close to running out. I caught rainwater. There was a lot of places I could fill up if I needed to. A lot of the villages had really clean water. The navigation wasn't really an issue. I had a really good satellite navigation app called Ovitel, which was amazing, and the water up there is also clear that you can really see the depths when there's reefs and stuff around. Obviously sailing at night or on really cloudy days is a no-no, but you pick your times. Security was just non-issue. Obviously in some places I took precautions. I didn't leave things up on deck. I took fishing rods inside and fuel cans and things like that. I tried to leave the cockpit quite clean and empty, but I just really never had the feeling that it was going to be an issue. People were welcoming and generous. They were giving me things. They weren't trying to steal anything, and it was just a non-issue. I just think people from the West are so scared of losing their hard-earned goods that they've worked all their lives for, that they just think people with nothing want to take from them. But you go to Zurich and ask someone for something for free, and they'll just say, go and get a job. These people are just generous. They'll give you the shirt off their back. They'll just give you anything. Like, they're so generous. They don't have that mentality that we have to accumulate stuff. So they don't have this protective thoughts that we have, you know, like we have to protect what we've hard worked for and all this. They don't have that. So security was just a joke to think about that would be a problem. I'm sure things have happened in the past, but then every city in the world, there's muggings, there's murders, there's things happen everywhere. There's a tiny percentage of humans everywhere in the world that are just bad, and you're going to find that. But I really feel in these places that I've been, the percentage of bad people is minuscule. You won't even meet them. There was a couple of towns where I asked about security, and the chief was like, yeah, we've got a couple of teenagers that are they're in their problem years. If you do have anything going missing, we know who it is and we'll get it back. You know, these kids, they're going to sort themselves out, and they was totally aware of it, and it's not a problem. It wasn't going to be vicious. It was just that the reckless teenagers rebelling, you know, so that wasn't a problem at all. So really all of those issues were not issues at all. And I didn't really have any issues. There was a couple of, I probably would have taken a better first aid kit maybe. I ran a bit low on some things. Your skin tends to flare up quite quick in these conditions. It's real hot, real salty. You're in the water all the time. And if you get a little infection or a little cut, it goes bad real fast. So you got to stay on top of these things. I would take some more antiseptic creams and different sorts of antibiotics, but I'll do that next time. But I mean, I survived and I'm more healthy than ever. Yeah, the boat went well. Yeah, everything was just amazing. It was just a really amazing year, and I'm really stoked that the YouTube channel has started going so well. I'm getting comments like, well, this is the best sailing YouTube channel and you're going to be at 100,000 subs in no time and blah blah blah, and I'm just unbelieving of that. But I'm really happy that all of you people who are subscribed, you know, who are commenting, I'm happy that you're really keen to watch what I'm producing. It's sort of new for me, the whole YouTube thing, and especially editing and that, but I'm really getting into it, and I'm getting more proud of what I'm producing. I think it's a bit more slick, the way I'm editing things and filming things. But what's the best thing for me is, compared to Instagram, for example, where people comment with an emoji, a love heart, a thing like, you know, something like that, which is, you know, whatever. On YouTube, you folk are writing paragraphs, and it's just amazing. And I love like in-depth, thoughtful comments and asking questions and things like that. And that's what's great about YouTube. There's a real give and take. There's a community feeling there, and the more you guys write, the more I'm stoked, and the more I'll write back to all of your questions, that's for sure. So please comment if you have any questions. Yeah, this is really stoking me out. It's really cool, and I aim to continue with it. That's the last video about anything to do with sailing until May, when I get back to the boat. The next couple of months will be more about my job as a photographer, shooting mountain stuff in the cold, and so there'll be a few videos of that. I hope you also enjoy them. It's probably maybe less interesting to some of you who are really into the sailing and the traveling world, but it's my life, it's what I do. I'm happy to do it. I make a good honest living from doing it, and I also love it at the same time. So it's a great balance to what I'm doing in the summers on the boat. Anyway, I just want to say thanks to you all for the support, especially all the patrons who have jumped on board in the last few weeks. It's really surprised me and really blown me away. Thanks again, and yeah, keep watching and sharing if you like it. See you next time.